everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Storytime with Mr. Bates. I wanted to take a moment at the start of this video and thank you all for your support of this channel. This is only my fourth video, and we are already over 50 subscribers, and quite a few of you are engaged in the comments, whether you're responding to the question of the day or just giving me your feedback. I very, very much appreciate it, so thank you for doing that. It shows me that these videos are not falling on deaf ears, and it encourages me to continue making them for you. So thank you very much for doing that. So we're going to dive straight into today's topic. For today's episode, I figured I'd provide you with an opportunity to make some moolah, make some money. Yes, it's true, this is another top 5 list, but this time we're focusing on some strange jobs from history. Who knows? Maybe you'll be able to convince someone to pay you for doing one of these jobs. Doubt it, considering they're all really old, but you never know. The number 5 spot on our top 5 list goes to knockers up. I know it sounds like a strange title for a job, but let me tell you what it is. Have you ever set an alarm and then hit the snooze button one too many times? Maybe you forgot to set the alarm clock. Or it didn't go off correctly, and you wake up in a panic, and you're rushing around trying to figure out what you're going to do and trying to get to where you got to go. Well, I think I have a solution for you. Hire a knocker up, or a knocker upper. This job is definitely the most recent on our list, but it was so good I had to include it. Most of these are older, but this one is actually from industrial Britain. England and Ireland, to be specific. These individuals used to walk around cities in England and Ireland with a big stick, and they'd knock on the windows. Or, in one case, they used a pea shooter to wake their clients up. Stick was extremely long and commonly made from bamboo, so that it was long enough to knock on the windows of the people who hired them, but light enough that it wouldn't smash through it, and they'd be able to move it around without too much difficulty. They would continue to tap on the window until someone in the home or apartment that they were knocking on told them to stop. So you'd have to actually go to the window and poke your head out and say, "Hey, I'm awake. You can stop knocking on my window now." No snooze button here, unless you go flop back down on your bed after you get up and go tell them you're all right. Quite an interesting job. Number 4, fullers. Here come the ancient Romans yet again. It seems like we can't quite get away from them. This is our 4th video, and I've mentioned them in all 4 so far. Anyway, let's talk about fullers. A fuller was a person who would stand in a big tub filled with dirty laundry, water, and alkaline chemicals. Those alkaline chemicals were usually human urine. They would then scrub the cloth inside the tub, then hang it to dry. They might also use a dye to restore colors in the cloth that they're cleaning. That they wouldn't climb into. They would just dip the cloth in and then hang it up to dry. Basically, they were the ancient equivalent to a dry cleaner, to a laundromat, except they clean the clothes with urine. I can't imagine what that clean clothing smelled like there. Number 3, garden hermits. This is my personal favorite on this list, mostly because and my wife already knows this, if I wasn't married, I would be a hermit, but this one's a different type. Sometimes called ornamental hermits, garden hermits were average people who were paid to live on the estate of wealthy landowners in the 18th century. Here's how it worked. The wealthy landowner, who owns a massive amount of land, obviously, would hire someone to live on their land. They'd give them housing, clothing, food, shelter, water, all that. And in return, this person was expected to dress up like a druid, which, if you don't know what a druid is, it basically think like a nature wizard, like a hippie wizard, sort of a tree lover mixed with Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Anyway, they'd have to dress up like a druid, and then they would go out onto this landowner's land, and they would entertain the guests. They'd tell stories or perform tricks or in some way get the attention of these guests for a time, and then they'd just go back into their little hut on this person's land. Yes, you got everything you needed provided for you, and all you had to do was act spooky or tell a story for some random rich guests every once in a while. Sounds like a pretty decent gig to me. That's just my opinion, though. Number 2, we have the Nomenclator. If you have a great memory and you don't mind parties or social gatherings, then this job is for you. Today we have all sorts of ways of staying in touch with someone. You can add them on Facebook or follow them on Twitter or Instagram or add them on Snapchat or subscribe to their YouTube channel. Whatever it is that you want to do to stay in touch with someone. You can add their phone number to your contacts, have a text message, FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, so on. Well, in the ancient times, it wasn't so easy to stay in touch with someone. You had to write down their name and where they lived, and if you wanted to send them a letter or something, you had to know where that letter was going to go. Well, usually you would meet people at parties, and a lot of ancient parties involve a lot of socializing, so it's really tough to remember everyone you meet at a party. So the job of a nomenclator was to follow around someone who's usually wealthy or important and write down the names, or sorry, not write down, because you're trying to do it with your mind. Take note of the names and the information of every individual that person that hired them interacted with that night. So their boss would be out at this party, meeting all these new people, and then the nomenclator would be following them, taking notes of everyone that they interact with throughout the evening. Once the party was over, you'd compile this all into a list, and you determine who was important enough for your boss to get back in touch with, and you'd ignore the unimportant people, and then you'd share this information with the person who hired you. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward job if you have the memory for it. Of course, you don't get to actually enjoy the parties you're at because you have to follow around the person who hired you, but at least, you're out and about. You can, if you have the memory for it, you can rub elbows with some of the more important people in your society. Not a bad gig. And finally, number 1, we have the taster. Now, this job may be the most well-known on this list, but I put it at number 1 for a simple reason. I like food. The taster's job was to sample every bit of food or drink that was given to a king, emperor, or other important figure, and to make sure it wasn't poison. Now, it's true that if the food was poisoned, then you would be the one to find out because you'd either die or get violently ill or whatever the poison makes you do. So there was that risk, but think about it like this. If you work for a king or an emperor who is pretty well liked or respected, and they have you as their taste tester, your chances of getting poisoned are pretty low, because who would want to kill someone in their kingdom if they're a pretty well-respected person? It's true, there's always that risk, but if you're working for someone who's respected, that risk is pretty low. That just means that you get to get paid to sample delicious food and high-quality beverages all day. The problem comes in cases where you're working with someone who is a bad emperor or a bad ruler. Let's use Nero from Rome, for example. Nero was not well liked, he was not well respected, and was the target of a lot of people. Being his taste tester would be very, very risky, because, if he's a target for an assassination and someone tries to poison his food, you taste test it, you're gonna die first, and then he won't because you died. He knows that his food's poisoned. However, I think I'd take the risk anyway, because you're literally getting paid to just eat food. That sounds like a pretty good job to me. And that's our list. I hope you enjoyed learning about these obscure jobs. Now it's time for the question of the day. The question I have for you today is, if you had to pick one of these jobs as your career, which one would it be and why? As always, leave your answer in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, you lovely, lovely people.